episode 164 of On Record PR, where we discuss the topics and strategies that matter most to law firm leaders. I'm Jennifer Simpson Carr, Vice President of Strategic Development at Furia Rubel Communications. And today I am joined by my colleague, Sarah Larson, our Executive Vice President, who, with Gina, leads our crisis management and litigation communications team. Hi, Sarah.
Hello, Jennifer. Nice to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Nice to see you, and thanks for joining me. I know for any football fans, it was a late night, but especially a late and exciting night for any Philadelphia Eagles fans.
Yeah, my eyes might be a little. We're doing video now, right? My eyes
Yes.
might be a little puffy. We had a late night last night, screaming and yelling for the Eagles. So lots of
Well,
fun.
it was a good result for us, and it was a fun game to watch. I
It
guess
was.
unless you're a Chiefs fan, but nonetheless, um,
Nonetheless.
partner departures is what we're talking about today, and it's an inevitable part of law firm life.
Yeah.
How law firm leaders handle departures have significant impact on the firm's reputation. So, in our discussion today, I'd like to equip our leaders with strategies for managing communications around partner departures to maintain stability and trust. And this is an area in which you and Gina lead executive committee members, managing partners. I know it's an area that's oftentimes um, really wrapped up in emotion. So I'd love to talk to you about that. I mean, given that we're on the heels of the Super Bowl, Saquon Barkley comes to mind with his departure
Yeah.
from the Giants to the
Yeah.
Eagles and the emotions around that. And so some of this is what happens when an MVP leaves your firm.
Yeah.
Um, so law firm leaders know that partner departures are a reality. Oftentimes they communicate to us that they feel blindsided when it happens. What are the first steps law firm leaders should take internally once they're notified that a partner is leaving?
Yeah, this is one of the most common reasons that that firms will come to us for, what they consider kind of crisis communications, like immediate, really high stakes communications. And look, it's just a fact of life in law firms. People come and go, but it's really important how you talk about it. It really sets the tone for your firm. And you're right, you can't control the story, and it's going to happen sometimes, but there are things that you can do to remind your team that with every change really does come opportunity. I hate to sound like Pollyanna, but the departure of a really important rainmaker leaves room maybe at the top for other attorneys internally to move up. So there's always there's always some sort of silver positive lining that we can highlight in our communication. So we usually give law firm leaders kind of like 5 tips to guide their communications. So generally, we tell them to, unless there's been some sort of wrongdoing, like acknowledge the departure with gratitude and kindness. Be transparent, but professional, and remain positive as much as you can. And number 3, reassure your team, because these kinds of changes, sometimes the leaders understand what it means, but the associates, the professional staff, a lot of people, their first inclination is always going to be, what does this mean for the firm? And so then what does it mean for my job? The other things are, we always kind of want to pivot to look ahead. So yes, this thing has happened, but what's next? What are we doing next? And then the other thing to keep in mind, we always tell them you're going to want to personalize your communications for different audiences. So what you say to the executive committee might be different than what you say to the equity partners. What you say to the equity partners is definitely going to be different than what you say to the associates. And then what you say to your clients and your external partners is going to be different than what you say to your internal team. So those are kind of our 5 pieces of advice that we give whenever we're handling these kinds of things.
Those are great steps, and I am sure in working with the firms, they do help partners who are making decisions take some of the emotion out of it.
Yeah.
I know, having worked in-house, that when communication doesn't happen around a significant firm event, it leaves the firm open, or the individuals within the firm open to start generating their own narrative.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about what taking a proactive and transparent approach to communications helps mitigate?
Sure, absolutely. So one of the things that we find is, especially if it's a departure of a really high level partner, maybe a practice group leader, somebody who's been there for a long time, it makes sense that they're keeping it quiet because they're working out all the details with their, typically their new firm, or if they're going to go out on their own. But a lot of times their partners and the executive committee really end up feeling betrayed. So there's also this sense of betrayal that you have to help them overcome and get everybody to kind of take a step back and realize, in the end, this is business, this is work. And as much as we might be colleagues and friends, this person had to make this choice. This is the best choice for their life. But even then, when planning those communications, there's always a way to position it to minimize the negative parts where we don't want as much attention and focus on the stuff we do want people to think about.
So, Sarah, those are all great points. I'm going to pause here for a message from our sponsor. And when we come back, I want to pick up on internal communications.
This episode is brought to you by Furia Rubel Communications, a public relations and marketing agency serving law firms and businesses worldwide. With an expert team positioned throughout the U.S. and supported by an international faculty, Furia Rubel enhances our clients' brands through integrated communications by providing expert guidance in crisis management and high-profile litigation, protecting brand and reputation, and supporting internal marketing teams. To learn more, visit furiarubel.com.
So, Sarah, we're back from our sponsor message, and I want to pick back up on internal communications. There's a really key point that I have learned from you and Gina watching you handle these difficult situations so gracefully, and it comes around how to handle in it comes around how to handle internal communications in a way that maintains trust and stability and is also transparent, but a way that protects the firm in case the communications is, if you will, leaked. So,
Mhm.
can you talk a little bit about that strategy?
Sure. I always fall back on something that I think must have come from my early days in reporting, like never put in writing anything you wouldn't want to see printed on the front page of the newspaper, is what I used to go by. Now it's more like, never put in an email anything that you would want to see online. Um, Even when you craft your messages for different audiences, everything has to remain cohesive is the word that's coming to mind. That's not really what I mean. You have to be telling the truth and the whole picture to both audiences. Both your messages have to be consistent. So if you say one thing in one message, whatever you say in the other message can't detract from that. Does that make sense? Am I explaining
Absolutely.
that right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So and we assume that whatever we say internally is going to get out. It's going to be leaked. There's a lot of different ways that we can control leaks. You can put there's all kinds of tech tools you can put on emails to track forwarding and all that kind of thing. But in the end, like people can also just take the information in their heads and call somebody up and say, "Hey, I heard XYZ." So we just move ahead believing that it's going to be shared at some point.
So, if I'm hearing you correctly, the real theme is consistency across messaging, even though different messages need to be geared towards different audiences,
Yeah.
and also write internal communications in a way that it could be published in a headline.
Yeah, absolutely. And it happens all the time.
So, speaking of headlines, we have seen major partner departures make headlines, and then we've seen other major partner departures handled with much grace and very smoothly and amicably. What are some of the most common pitfalls that our listeners can avoid when they're handling partner departures to mitigate to the best of their ability being that frontline story?
So typically what will happen, as long as there's no overarching reason for the departure itself to get out immediately, what will normally happen is the new firm that the attorney is going to will make an announcement that, so and so attorney has just joined from their previous firm. And so the legal writers at the legal publications who who kind of publish all those kind of roundups, sometimes features too, depending on how high profile it is, will always call the firm and say, why did this person leave? You don't always have to have a statement ready, but it is helpful to have something ready in case you do want to say something publicly. We always tell our clients that it's an opportunity to reinforce what your firm is doing instead of focusing on the person who left in these quotes in your external messaging.
So these have all been great tips. I know we wanted to keep this episode really quick and to the point so that our listeners could walk away and put in place strategies or tactics that may not already be in place at their firm in the event that a partner departure happens. So I will point our listeners to our show notes where we will map out not only a transcript of this conversation, but the 5 key points that Sarah mentioned to help you walk through this type of process. Sarah, thank you so much for joining me today, especially after such a late night. And
I'm going to complain to HR. Oh, wait.
That's us.
Yep, that's us.
Thank you so much to our listeners for tuning in today. We welcome your feedback on the podcast format. We would love to hear what topics you are most interested in hearing about. Please contact us at podcast@onrecordpr.com. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on iTunes, and we will see you all next week. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
On Record PR is produced by Jennifer Simpson Carr and Matt Henderson, with support from the team at Furia Rubel Communications. This episode is edited by Isabel Horan and Christian Yamula. Visit www.onrecordpr.com for resources and more information.